News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. President Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, says the administration will draw down the number of immigration enforcement officers in Minnesota after they get cooperation from state officials. The priority, turn over more immigrants from the state's prisons and jails.
So if we get these agreements in place, that means less agents on the street. More agents in the jail means less agents in the street.
Governor Tim Walz says the state already hands over immigrants who have completed their sentences for serious crimes. Holman seemed to suggest a renewed focus on what ICE calls targeted operations, focusing on apprehending immigrants who have committed crimes. Holman added he has zero tolerance for protesters who assault his officers or impede their work. Republican Senator Susan Collins of Maine says immigration officials have ceased their enhanced operations in that state. Collins released a statement saying there are no ongoing nor planned large-scale ICE operations in Maine. Collins' announcement comes more than a week after immigration officers began an operation in Maine called Catch of the Day. ICE says more than 200 people were arrested since that operation started. A six-bill government funding package approved by the House of Representatives is on track to fail a procedural vote in the Senate while government funding talks continue. Senate Majority Leader John Thune says the Senate's getting closer to a deal to avoid a shutdown when current funding expires on Friday. Senate Democrats are threatening to hold up six major spending bills unless there are changes made to immigration enforcement policy. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
They are operating effectively outside the law. Every day, every minute, you recoil. It's not America. It's thugs roaming our streets. We need to end ICE's indiscriminate patrols. We need the masks to come off, and we need the body cameras to stay on.
Senate Majority Whip John Barrasso says even if there is a shutdown, it still won't impact ICE nor DHS.
The Democrat shutdown does not change the immigration law, nor will it halt immigration law enforcement. That's because Republicans already put into law the largest investment in border security and immigration enforcement in the history of this nation.
Majority Leader Thune says DHS would get stopgap funding under a deal emerging from talks between Senate Democrats and the White House. And President Trump announced during a cabinet meeting that Venezuelan airspace is about to reopen.
I just spoke to the president of Venezuela and informed her that we're going to be opening up all commercial airspace over Venezuela. American citizens will be very shortly able to go to Venezuela, and they'll be safe there.
And the president says he's had what he calls a very productive telephone conversation with Mexico's president, Claudia Sheinbaum. President Trump says they'll talk more very soon and will set up meetings with Sheinbaum in both the U.S. and Mexico. The president posted on social media that most of their conversation focused on the border, drug trafficking, and trade. Now, speaking of trade, the U.S. trade deficit widened in November as imports rebounded and exports fell. The goods and services trade gap nearly doubled from the month before. Trade data are prone to volatility related to the implementation of U.S. trade policy, with a surge in inbound shipments of pharmaceuticals and a slide in gold exports in November. A tech sell-off dragged down stocks amid no signs of easing up on AI spending, even as doubts persist about the staying power of demand to justify it all. We do check the markets for you all day long here at Bloomberg. The S&P 500 is down 0.7%. NASDAQ is flat. The Dow little changed on the downside. The 10-year Treasury yield at 4.25%. The 2-year yield at 3.55%. The dollar rebounded. The Bloomberg Dollar Spot Index little changed on the downside. And as the dollar gained, gold retreated, falling the most since October, now down more than 2%. Microsoft shares down 12% after reporting record spending and slowing cloud sales growth. Meta shares are up more than 9% after a revenue outlook that was much stronger than expected. Tesla shares are more than 2% lower after reporting adjusted earnings per share for the fourth quarter that topped estimates and sales below estimates. The company also announced a $2 billion investment in XAI. Not much change to the labor picture in the latest weekly jobless claims. Bloomberg's Michael McKee with those numbers.
They do rise to 209,000 last week, but that's still a very, very low number. Now, we should point out, you've heard a lot about layoffs the last 48 hours or so, including more today from Dow. Those won't show up as jobless claims until those people's severance runs out. So we wouldn't expect the numbers that we've heard this week to suddenly show up.
Bloomberg's Mike McKee, and that's news when you want it. With Bloomberg News Now, I'm Amy Morris. This is Bloomberg.